Welcome to WholeCEO with Lisa G. I'm the best-selling author of the Boss Weight Loss. I'm bringing you the top tips to be unstoppable. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to actually pull up a chair with today's top experts in mindset, weight loss, business, and more. Learn our top tips so that you can have more energy, be fit and resilient, feel unstoppable, unshakable, and unbreakable. With over 30 years experience as an entrepreneur, executive leader, business owners, has built, sold, spun off 5 companies, starting her first one at the age of 19, was a documentary film producer, co-hosted one of the top podcasts on iTunes for 8 years called Parenting Unplugged with her husband. She was executive director of nonprofit Little Voice Productions for 8 years, has served on a number of boards, and has been a strategy consultant for numerous public and private companies. Called Pioneer of Podcasting by NPR. Her company has been featured in Forbes, Entrepreneur, Portland Business Journal, 40 Under 40, and named one of the Entrepreneurs of the Year by Denver Post. A visionary and culture catalyst, she believes the importance of a strong, safe, resilient, and inclusive culture. In the last 2 decades, she's dedicated her time to supporting leaders to be better. She's currently the founder of 2 companies, Taproot Ventures and Sapna Experiences. She'll be co-facilitating experience for 22 amazing leaders in Greece, focusing on women leaders connecting to their center. It'll be a holistic experience. She's a passionate real estate investor, facilitator, and teacher, and a mother to her sons, Dylan, Connor, and Drew. And she and her partner, Todd, have been married for 24 years. They love skiing, hiking, anything outdoors. I am so thrilled and pumped to welcome to the podcast, Laura Mansfield. Welcome.
Wow. Thanks, Lisa. That was long. I'm actually turning a little red because that was a lot.
I went through it as fast as possible because I wanted to get right into the content because I feel like you have so much wisdom here to impart. So why is balance a myth, and how can we be unstoppable and busy?
Oh, I love that question. And it's really, for me, it's rooted in, there's just so many things happening, especially for women at any given time. And we have so many roles that we play. We're wives, we're mothers, we're business owners, whatever it is that we do in our lives. And so I never have believed, actually, I worked really hard for a lot of years to find balance. Like, how do I have balance amongst all these things that I do? Yeah, the myth. And I'm super passionate, right? So I have a lot of things I'm passionate about, including my kids. I super love being a mom. It's funny because sometimes when I say that, people are really surprised. Like, really? You love being a mom? And I love it. I love hanging out with my kids. I love doing things with them. And so finding the balance of that, like finding when I can find that time to be with my kids, and then finding time when I need to be working. And my boys are so amazing because I spend a lot of time around emotional intelligence with my kids just because of the work that I do in the world. And so in that, we've talked a lot about, them asking for what they need and honesty and all the things. And because my boys are a little older, they're 18 and 15 now, they'll say things to me like, Mom, we understand that you need to work, like go work, do your work, get your stuff done, and then just schedule time to be with us. And so that I had this kind of breakthrough when they were around 9. My oldest was around 9, and he had this like sit down with me. He calls it a mom meeting. And we used to do mom dates. And he was like, we're not going to do mom dates anymore because you're always trying to find balance. And this is a 9-year-old. You're trying to find balance. Like so balance doesn't exist, Mom.
It doesn't.
And so I started thinking about like, okay, so I'm never going to be, I'm a Libra. I always want to be in balance. The truth is that sometimes I'm going to be over here and I'm going to be doing a ton of things there. And sometimes I'm going to be over here and doing a ton of things there. And I think it's really prioritizing what we find to be the most important for ourselves and for our life and for just the world around us. And there'll be different things pulling at us at different moments. But yeah, it's really a farce. Like there's no such thing as balance.
I agree. I totally agree. And I would love to just bounce off that with another topic of how can we then find time for ourselves to recharge, because I know for me, like if I go on a vacation or on a plane even, I feel like I have a higher vantage point. So a
Yes.
person with as many things as you're doing, what do you think about that question, finding time for ourselves?
Oh, I love it. For me, that's the most important. So, I mean, I've meditated now for almost 30 years, and that grounded part of yourself that you find when you take time away
Right.
is, or remember, let's say that you remember when you take time away is part of the journey, is part of just the
Absolutely.
is part of health, right? It's part of like actually what is real health or wellness is that we find time for ourselves. And I think I used to feel like I had to go off to some retreat center, not that I don't love doing that too, and spas and
Right.
all the things, but I used to think I had to go off in order to find wellness or health. And what I've really come to learn is that it's carving out that time every day for myself. So I do have a pretty regular, not pretty, I have a kind of stupidly, uptight way that I do my mornings. Like I get up and I'm in quiet and I do my meditation and I do my writing and I do a little bit of reading, and then I go on a walk with my dog, and then I come back and I meditate with my husband. And I do that every
Oh,
morning.
I
And
love
and
it.
for me that, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I
Yeah.
was just gonna say I love it that you do that together, because I would love to bring that into my relationship. I love meditation.
Yeah, and it's full disclosure, it took a while. Like my husband is, he's been around me for 24 years, right? He's like, I don't need to do that. But once we started doing the meditation, we've now been doing it for almost a decade, which is
Oh,
amazing. We do it
I
every
love
morning.
that.
And we notice when we don't get to do it, because both of us travel a lot for work. And we notice when we don't get to do it that we really are disconnected. And we even were saying that this morning. We did our meditation and we light these candles and we pick cards and we have this whole routine that we've been doing, and we change decks and we do all these things to make it a little more interesting. And we were just saying how we didn't do that for a few weeks. We had some sickness in our house, we had other things going on, and we really noticed how we kind of became disconnected, and we argued and we weren't pleasant to be around. My youngest son was like, either start meditating again or go get a therapist, mom and dad, because
Oh,
this
that's
is
so
ridiculous.
fun. Oh my God.
So this morning we said, okay, we're going to carve out time, and I actually changed my meetings so that I could spend some time with him this morning, because it really felt like that was what needed to happen. So
I love that, because to me, I value a morning routine, and I feel like we all have the same 24 hours in the day. And it's almost like a matter of bending time, the way you look at time, so that you have
I
that
love
time
that.
for yourself.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I love this idea of, I am a big morning person, and I know not everybody is. And so
Right.
I get up really early, and I love being up before anyone else is up. And I love walking the dog up to the top. We live across from this cool park, and you can walk to the top of a hill and see the
Oh,
sunrise. And I love doing that. And for some people, that, for my husband, that is totally not appealing. So that's where I can carve out my time and really find my health and really find my internal voice. And I think that's been one of the most transformational things for me in my life, is that my brain moves really fast at any given moment. And so finding the time away from my monkey mind for a little bit to really silence myself inside and to really listen beyond my own voices. That sounds like it has been probably some of the most healing and transformational work that I've done for myself. And so much so that I started teaching meditation and doing all these other pieces, because I saw as a woman the change that came as a result of doing that for myself. So
yeah, I believe it in manifesting. I feel like through meditation and focusing on being grateful every morning, that you can focus on what you really want rather than just jumping into the day. It just gives so much back. And if somebody as busy as you are with all these companies that you run and done and everything you're doing, can find time to meditate, you guys do too. So I hope you're taking notes here. And I really want to talk to you about active listening and what it is and why is it important, because I feel like the world really needs that right now.
thanks for bringing that up too. Yeah. And if you don't mind, I'll back up for 1 minute and I'll say, I
Sure.
love that you mentioned gratitude, because I think us being in gratitude, and I lived for a hot minute in Haiti and then in Africa. And at the time there were just, it was a lot. There were a lot of things going on in those countries, and as there still are. I'm just not there right now. And every morning I had a mentor, and he said, when you get up, just every morning, think about 3 things you're grateful for, like 3 things, like running water, or shoes on my feet, or the ability to wear a baseball hat and guard me from the sun. Like the simplest things really are transformational. So I can't emphasize enough how gratitude, the more I practice it, the more I feel joy. Like the more I feel
Yeah.
happy.
I
So
do it every day. It's so important to me. And
I love that.
I love the way that we are in sync on so many things, the importance of meditation, having a morning routine, being grateful. And I just like to appreciate people. I feel like when you appreciate people, it goes a long way, don't you?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love doing the morning gratitude practice and the evening gratitude practice. So before I go to bed, I have a gratitude journal next to my bed, and I write all the things I was grateful for the day, and then anything I learned from the day that maybe I could implement the next day. So I love this practice of intention. And I think with intention comes health if we're really thoughtful about it. And I saw a quote today that I think maybe was meant for this, which was the quote that says, like, we only hit the things we aim at. Like if we were really thoughtful and intentional about the direction that we're going at and our dreams, how you said, like, dreams, we can create our dreams. I
Yeah.
feel like that's how we get there. And I had a friend get in touch with me. She's in Australia. She's from Australia. She's in Ubud right now at the 2020 summit. And she was talking about how a friend bought her this this massage at this spa. And she looked at it. She's like, why does this look so familiar? And she realized that it was a picture of a spa she'd put on her dream wheel 5 years ago of a
Wow.
place she wanted to go. And that to me was like, oh, I gotta do a new dream wheel, because I've had like one up on my wall and things have happened, and now I need to get a new dream wheel up on my wall. So little things like that we think are maybe woo-woo or whatever, they're really not. Like they really help us move our path, help us move in our path to create what we're wanting to create. So
Yeah, no,
yeah.
I was listening to a podcast about that today too with Lewis Howes and Vishen Lakhiani, Mind Valley, and they were talking about you have to be clear on what you want and believe that you can have it, and then those are the tools towards getting what you want. And 100% belief is so important too, don't you think?
Yes. Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Those three things. What is it? It's like believe, see it happening, and then actually believe again, like the belief sandwich, really believe that that's what's coming once you've gotten clarity on what it is that you're going for, once you've distilled what that dream is. And I want to make sure I do want to talk about active listening, because it's one of the things I'm like most passionate about in my life. And I would say that we as leaders, somehow many leaders have gotten away from the practice of active listening. So we don't always do a great job of like pausing and listening to what the other said. And it's funny, I'm even going to call myself out on that, because I get so excited talking to you that I even noticed me like interrupting you or cutting you off.
That's why I brought it up. I'm like, I'm over talking you, and I don't mean to. So I think active listening is something we can all benefit from, right?
Absolutely. And then feeding back. So what happened to me for years and years, like the first couple companies that I ran, I was always thinking of my response before the other person finished. And so I've really started to practice my own active listening practice, which is really waiting till the end of a thought. And so that's why I'm so shocked that I'm cutting you off, but I'm so passionate. But waiting till the end of a thought and then responding, like, what I heard you say was this, or did I hear you correctly? Or, oh, that's interesting. And having the willingness within myself to change what my response is going to be based on what I hear from you. So that there's this really great opportunity for us to seed new concepts based on what others bring us. It's like that collective consciousness that happens around us. And it happens so much more effectively when you're open to hearing everyone.
So as I hear you said, it's like repeating back what the person said to make sure that you weren't just overthinking, what am I going to respond? Like you actually heard them and repeating it back to them. And then you have the ability to be flexible in your response if you're not thinking while you're listening.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's exactly that. You plant the seed can change inside you from the result of what that person tells you. And to me, that's like the magic, where the magic happens, is when we're really open to those around us and we're able to change our responses.
I know, because we met through David Meltzer, another podcast guest, and from the Unstoppable Foundation. And I know he always says that it's hard to do business with people that are closed-minded, isn't it?
So hard. Yeah. and who aren't open. We talked a little bit right before the show started about the importance of active listening, especially for folks who are newer in the workforce, like Gen Zers or those, the next generation, like really expect from their leaders open-mindedness and active listening and really being present. And I think that's not what we learned. And, I don't want to put you in my generation, but the back times,
Oh, I am.
it was more,
Believe me.
okay. I just want to, much more hierarchical, much more like tell what needs to happen. And I think if we can change that to really look at a more collective way of doing business, it's actually much more effective for the bottom line. And it's also much more effective for our people. And we're more apt to retain folks if we approach the world that way.
Yeah, because everybody wants to feel like what they say matters and that they are heard.
Right. It's all about being heard. It's all about feeling included. And we talk a lot in my company, Taproot Ventures, around belonging, like creating spaces of belonging or cultivating spaces of belonging. And with feeling heard, that's one of the first steps to really creating a place where people feel like they belong and feel like they're welcome and feel like they're a part of, versus just being told what to do, which can oftentimes happen, unfortunately.
And even also being vulnerable in the workplace is also something that I've read recently that Richard Branson says is a superpower. And obviously Brene Brown says it's a superpower, but that people want to hear, how did you fail sometimes? And then they will do anything for you as a leader.
Yeah. Yes. That's been something I've been working on. So 20 years, I built these 8 tenants. I did it with another colleague, Tressa Yanakawa-Bundren, and we designed these 8 tenets that are actually, we call the inclusive leader tenets. And we train on those when we work with leaders. So vulnerability, integrity, right action, true humility, active listening, inclusion. So we have these 8 different tenets, and it's interesting because vulnerability is the one that leads the pack. Because if you can find it within yourself to really be vulnerable and open and honest about your experience, it doesn't always feel good. Like, it doesn't always feel good. It feels really uncomfortable. But if you can get comfortable with being uncomfortable and really step into that, it actually becomes a seed of transformation for your entire team. Because then there's a trust that comes as a result, right? So trust is also one of the tenets, and trust grows from vulnerability, and inclusion grows from vulnerability. So a lot of things come as a result of allowing just honest, like earlier we were talking, we've had sickness in our house. Like I'm very open with saying, like, it's been really frustrating. My husband and I have been fighting. Like, I'm not going to tell you that everything is perfect if everything isn't perfect, but I'm also not going to go so far down the rabbit hole that I'm going to tell you every little detail of what's happening, unless you're interested. And then probably I will, because I'm Irish. But that being said, I think that the sharing that comes as a result of story and the human story is really what connects us. It's like that connective tissue that we come together around.
Well, I think that's such a great, unstoppable thing to leave people with, is the power of storytelling, creating trust by being vulnerable. Do you want to just recap any of the things that you said about your tenets for leadership?
Sure. I think what I would say, interestingly, makes folks most unstoppable is really being true to themselves first, and then being true to what is actually happening in their lives, and actually embracing vulnerability in that action and becoming part of that ecosystem of trust and honesty and vulnerability as a part of their company, but also as in their lives. Like, really, I don't have a lot of patience anymore for talking about like the great hairstyle or the great clothing or whatever else it is. My patience and allowing really sits with when somebody is just really vulnerable and open and honest with me about life and about who they are and about their story. It definitely connects me to them in a different way than it would if I had a more surface conversation.
Well, I love the way that you mentioned that also, too, not going too deep into the vulnerability, because it's almost like the Rocky, like the hero story. You want to, in the hero's journey, you want to be like, here you are now, but you were down there in the pit, but then you came back out, and here's the lesson. Like, you don't want to be oversharing like stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that for some of us who are naturally more vulnerable, there can be a tendency to go down the rabbit hole and and it becomes beyond a certain point. It just isn't healthy for you, nor is it healthy for the person that you're speaking to, because sometimes that results in more drama, that results in more like, oh my gosh, can you believe what that person did? And that is not vulnerability. That is judgment. That is sitting in fear. That is being in scarcity. What the vulnerability I'm speaking of is something that really feels uncomfortable to you, that you share and that is honest for you, that actually helps another connect or learn from your experience.
So the teachable moment from the lesson, from the failure or whatever scary things we've all done, and sharing them. I love your tips. Where can people find more Laura Mansfield?
Thank you. Probably the taprootway.com is the best place to go. And my email, if folks want to reach me, is laura@thetaprootway.com.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for being a guest on WholeCEO with Lisa G.
Thank you, Lisa. So honored to be here. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for coming to WholeCEO with Lisa G. After over 20 years helping people lose weight and get fit, I'm so excited to announce that I found the missing link with my coaching. Message me if you want to learn how to look better, feel better, and go faster with a master. Lisa G at lisagfit.com.